Hi, and welcome to the weekly predictions based on astrology for the week of February 15, 2021. In terms of the stock market directions, Monday, obviously, there's a federal holiday in the US and the markets were closed. So starting Tuesday, I think Tuesday market will go up, and then the rest of the week, Wednesday through Friday, I think the market will go down. In terms of some of the important things to mention, I think this week may see some important transits for China, especially 15th through the 19th, where there may be increased news out of China about like their investments in oil, gas, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, or perhaps about the growth of inventory of the related products, maybe like stockpiling oil or something like that. And there may also be increased news about floods or excessive precipitation, or just water in general, like water erosion, for example. Shipments that go via water, like obviously some containers being shipped, or Navy. And the focus in those areas could be on, again, expansion. So maybe expanding the number of vessels that are dispatched, or shipments going to a greater number of locations, or perhaps making some improvements. So maybe improving the, security and safety, or some sort of project that is geared towards taking care of like water pollution. Let's see, and or either if say there are floods, then maybe projects will be announced that somehow are aimed at reducing damage that comes from floods, or even projects that aim to prevent the floods and or somehow prevent, again, water pollution. So let's see. There may even be some laws that are passed that either govern how, again, something that's like a chemical or oil is shipped, or how the water is being either distributed, or how the water is being, how the bodies of water are being maintained to perhaps prevent pollution, or prevent floods, or minimize the damage from, again, water pollution or floods. Let's see. Then for global, influence, the second part of the week, especially the 17th through the 19th, appear significant. And for February 17th, 19th through 19th globally, there may be increased focus on news in the news on businesses related to like IT, electric cars, aerospace, airlines, power generation, telecoms, as well as financial area like banks and any sort of financial institutions, but with the focus on, again, anything that's like high-tech, digital. So perhaps apps that one would use to invest or to send money over the internet, or any sort of digital or high-tech innovations that are specifically geared towards improving, financial institutions' ability to do something like over the internet, or make things a little bit more cutting edge there. And there may also be some news about either some projects that perhaps, again, are high-tech and innovative. So maybe some sort of a project to build a fast-moving vehicle of some sort, or electric car, or project that somehow involves cryptocurrency trading, like I said, be it an app or something that improves, again, digital kind of a way of sending money, or just to improve experience for customers in either area, again, of IT or in financial industry, but somehow by bringing IT to it. And some of the value of these businesses, again, 17th through the 19th of February, may go down because there may be concerns about the volatility of this, or kind of unstable, maybe profits from such investments. So there may be, on the one hand, push to do something innovative and creative in those areas to, again, bring some sort of technological advancements, but at the same time there may be concerns about basically, is there really what's the value proposition there? Will the investments pay off, or perhaps it's going to be too volatile or too unpredictable, and so therefore at the end of the week the value of some of these businesses or their services or their products may go down because of that. And there may also be, at the same time, for these same areas, news or focus on some negotiations about like a sale or acquisition of a business in those areas or part of the business, again, IT, aerospace, digital banking, and or innovative feature being implemented in one of those areas. However, at this time, this week, there may be too much disagreement again about the value sort of that's there. Like maybe if there's an acquisition, not everybody may agree on the price, or if it's innovation to be implemented, there may be disagreement about sort of the value of it at this time. And if these negotiations continue, I think there's a chance that the actual agreement may be reached next week about the actual price or some agreement about the value of it. And then if indeed such agreement is reached around February 22 through 25, so next week sometime, that project indeed may be successful over the long time. And that's because it will likely get support from either the government or from large established corporations. For 18th, 19th, which is Thursday, Friday, what we may see is, last week, as I mentioned, around the new moon, so sometime between February 10th through 12th, there may have been some assets or some, stocks or some companies or any new projects that may have begun at that time. So anything that was like in the news and was considered to be really attractive or went up at that time may actually go down, and the attractiveness may kind of be, or rather the level of attractiveness may temporarily go down, and the value may go down on the 18th, 19th of this week. And at the same time, I think that this might be a temporary sort of a dip. And again, if there are any projects or any announcements, or like there was an IPO of Bumble last week, which I've never heard of Bumble until actually I googled what was happening last Thursday, but this was an auspicious time, so and it did go up quite a bit in price. So things that basically have either been announced on the 10th through the 12th of February or went up on the 10th through 12th of February. This week, at the end of the week, Thursday, Friday, they may go down, but I think again, long term, like this, specifically this Bumble stock, for example, I think it may go up through like early to even mid April, and that's based on the sort of the birth date for the IPO, and also on the date when the the founder of the and the CEO of Bumble, this lady Whitney, heard when she was born. So there's some auspicious transits to her chart and to the chart of new moon that we had last week. So let's see. And as I mentioned, Friday will be again a down day. So overall, I think it looks more like a down week, but not super horrible. So not necessarily a big drop or anything like that. In terms of the ongoing background influences that we have, through about November of next year, we will have this on-off square between Saturn and Uranus, which will indeed be fairly precise this week and into next week. And I would say it will be felt more strongly through about March 5, and then several other times throughout the year and into, like I said, next year. And that would typically coincide with various ideological clashes between kind of more progressive kind of a thinking or ideas of like freedom, equality, and things that Uranus stands for, and making things faster, more kind of high tech, and more of that, and it will clash with Saturnian ideas of kind of making things like slower, more conservative, keeping the status quo, and perhaps, the progress might be indeed fine. However, things need to be, triple and quadruple measured and double and triple checked before anything can progress. And what that might also coincide with is potentially some innovations, especially in like banking area or finance area where Uranus is currently passing through, but Saturn will not let it rather happen quickly, and it will potentially be more of a reaction to something breaking down first, like some sort of part going down or some application not working or some problems like volatility or losses being experienced first, and then Saturn will come in and basically indeed there will be progress, there will be innovation, and things will be improving, but through these stumbling over problems and delays and restrictions to begin with. And this week this transit, it's fairly strong, so we may have more of those kind of news or this general background kind of feel with us. Let's see, and as I mentioned previously, this aspect will be with us kind of throughout next year, but certain times of the year it will be felt more strongly, and especially when Mars will join this square, and that will be around end of June and early July is when we may expect these things kind of go from maybe just this ideological differences to more of like actual clashes, and this will also be the time where we may see potentially industrial accidents, disasters, some weather problems like a large explosion of sorts, and that will be again more like in the summer. But this week it will be most likely manifesting just as a general trend, sort of in the news trend and sort of economy, for example. Let's see. And for the US, the period that started from end of January and through early March, especially this week, again, the end of the week, February 17th through 19th, will see like a relatively strong influence of this. There may be some important announcements related to financial policies, taxes, earnings, losses, and again, especially for the IT companies, electric cars, aerospace, social media, banks, and any sort of news that are related again to like digital banking, digital currencies, etc. And these events in the US may affect large groups of people, and the opinions about these developments may be divided, like half of the population will love it and half will be quite against it. There may also be increased news again in the US about like prominent individuals like CEOs or politicians or like actors, and especially things may have to do with their finance or their status, earnings, taxes, their wealth, as well as even their freedom and their health. So there may be some important news along the lines of, this person lost their status or their wealth, has dramatically changed, or maybe they lost their freedom or they were expelled from some sort of organization. And these could be in response to previous activities or that were like either risky, maybe risky investments, and they lose the wealth, or they were doing something that was like extra adventurous and risky behaviors, and some organization they're part of expels them as a consequence. So some sort of backlash as a result of previously kind of irresponsible behaviors or a large financial loss. Maybe they were doing something risky, they brought financial loss onto the organization, and again the organization has to basically get rid of them. And this could be again a CEO, politician, prominent person of some status. And lastly, again for the US, this whole period through early March, there's an increased probability of companies yet again in the areas of like IT, airlines, plane manufacturers especially, where there could be news about those companies suffering greater than expected losses if those companies are too slow to implement some sort of like latest technologies. So obviously it will not affect every company, but in those particular areas, again, airlines, IT, even social media, anything like digital banking, anything like that, for companies that will be too slow to adapt to, say, reduce number of passengers or not implement the latest tech approaches or do things digitally, online, etc. Those companies may suffer greater than usual losses, even to the point of announcing bankruptcies, and that's through early March, and that's for the US. That this is just kind of a long-term background influence. And finally, for China, the period from around February 8 through mid-March, and especially like this week, it will be from 15th through the 19th is when this will be felt the strongest. This is an important time period where there may be increased focus again for China on either important powerful alliances, partnerships, more like one-on-one negotiations, contracts, and leadership, and also leadership, especially in the area of military or expanding their military might or showcasing some sort of achievements in the military. And actually, for China, it is a relatively auspicious period for enhancing their capabilities, again, either militarily, but also related specifically to communication, transportation, as well as in the area, as I earlier mentioned, for like oil, gas, chemicals, navy. And in terms of leadership, there could be, if there is a new beginning in one of those areas, maybe there's some expansion, again, in the Navy or something like that, then there may need to be an appointed a new leader, or the change in leadership will be made to facilitate that kind of expansion. And the developments, again, may also include things like any again high-tech areas like airspace, IT, etc. And there may be, push for innovation in those areas, and or change revisions in partnerships and agreements. And again, this may somehow require a new leader to come in, or a new leader is going to be featured more prominently because they're able to somehow facilitate expansion in one of those areas, which again, powerful alliances, military expansion, and improvements or expansion in the areas related to like Navy, gas, oil, all those Neptunian areas, as well as anything that's high-tech like IT and airspace. Let's see, and for China to continue sort of what will be coming up ahead in the immediate future is early to mid-March of 2021, there continues to be strong focus on sort of partnerships, especially one-on-one sort of agreements, rather than being a part of organization. And there, for China, there may be some increased news about like power plays. Either China feels pressured by some other partner to do something, or vice versa, China may be pressuring their partner to do something. And the issues that may come up is whether something that's being done is legal, or something is being done in secret, or there's a data breach or hack, and also increased focus on expanding either nuclear power or recycling capabilities, or arguing about those. And again, this would involve more like one-on-one partnership kind of discussions rather than large organization discussions. And for US, as well as I guess globally, in April, August, and December of 2021, there may be increased focus on the value of US dollar, and related to that on the value of gold and silver. And there may be some reversals in the price of gold and silver, again, possibly because of the changes in the value of US dollar and some sort of financial policies in the US, and that's April, August, and December of this year. And also on my blog at alsunka.com, I had updated some predictions for oil. That's because there was a question, I guess, on one of my previous videos. This is just like a preliminary glance review, just to see what might be important dates upcoming. And that's not just for oil and gas, but also for any other Neptunian areas. So this could be pharmaceuticals, infectious diseases, pollution, but all those things could be related. So for example, there's a transportation of oil, and there's an oil spill, and obviously it leads to water pollution. Or maybe there's a flu outbreak, but this affects travel, and that obviously can affect oil prices. Or maybe there's like a hurricane or flood, and it affects gas production, refining, delivery, etc. So all of those things tend to be related one way or the other, but basically the times that I'm going to mention in a second for 2021 and also for a few years ahead are related to Neptunian areas in general, with again focus here specifically on oil and gas prices. So March 1st through 13th of 2021, oil value may either increase around that time or leading to those dates and potentially reach a top. And again, potentially this could be followed by reversal to down. Nothing too dramatic, but just maybe kind of not beneficial, but an auspicious time, I guess, for oil to go up. Then April 8 through 11 may see increased news about oil, but also about any kind of infectious diseases, epidemics, pharmaceuticals, like crazy wet weather, problems involving Navy, so all of the array of different problems related to like water and liquids. And at that time, I think there may be a decline in oil prices, especially maybe even a few days leading to this April 8 through 11 period. And at that time, there may be potentially a reversal after the 11th, which this whole weekend, 10th through 11th of April, looks tense, not just for oil, but in general. And again, if there's a reversal after this, potentially a drop around the April 8th through 11th, the reversal to up probably will not be, again, dramatic. It just will not be, things will not be, I guess, as bad as on the 8th through 11th for oil and other Neptunian areas. Then around the 21st of June of this year, oil price may again go up either around the 21st and the days that are preceding to the 21st of June. Then in August 8th through 10th, another time where there may be increased oil-related news or news related to like gas, infectious diseases, again floods, etc. And at that time, there may be some increased news potentially related to like travel or shipping, and there may be some changes in the laws, maybe like some regulation of the shipping or travel, especially over water or of liquids, so any sort of pipelines, vessels that are carrying oil, etc. And at that time, there may be, let's say, slight, not necessarily problems, but some regulations which could indicate, I guess, maybe slight oil down. I'm not sure necessarily at this time of the it doesn't look particularly negative to me, but there's just maybe again more regulation, and this may have to do with regulation of shipping and or like travel. Then sometime August 31st through September 3rd of 2021 is when there may be kind of another difficult time where potentially there will be drop in oil prices or increased concerns and troubling news related to any of the Neptunian areas, maybe spike in infectious diseases, some concerns about, like this flu pandemic, oil spills, pollution, floods, rains, etc. And that too may potentially again coincide with like drop in oil prices right around that time or a few days before that, but then followed by a reversal to up, I guess, after the 3rd of September. At the end of September, so sometime September 28th through 30th, is when I think oil may go up again, especially in the days approaching the 28th. And that's where potentially on the 30th there may be a peak, or just, again, nothing necessarily dramatic, but there could be a general reversal, most likely I think from up to down around the 30th of September. And that's because there may be again increased concerns about either infectious diseases, epidemics, or there may be additional regulations by the governments on travel and communication, transportation. Let's see, in October 25th through the 28th of this year seem to be important again for oil, gas, infectious diseases, wet weather, etc. Travel and shipping, especially of liquids over water, etc. And there again, there may be increased news about travel restrictions at this point at the end of October. So let's go back. So at the end of October, there may possibly be a drop in oil prices. And October 25th through 28th, there might be a drop in oil prices, and that's due to the potential increase in the inventory, excessive like availability of the supplies, or an evaluation that maybe the prices are too high. And then at the end of November 27th or 30th is where there may be increased news about like infectious diseases, pandemics, travel, and perhaps some changes in the regulations of, again, travel, either being lifted or implemented. But that's where I think at the end of November, there may not be a reversal necessarily in the oil prices, but probably it will be a continuation of, I believe, a downtrend at the time, but maybe things will just get kind of slightly worse. So if there was already a trend down at the end of November for oil or gas, it may probably kind of intensify, become kind of more steep of a drop. And again, I think this may have to do with travel restriction. And again, those may have to do with like concerns about infectious diseases, pandemic, or weather. So again, this is just a glance view. I did post some of this on my blog at ilsunga.com, and I will be updating those particular bullet points as I kind of look into this deeper. A couple more things to mention that are oil related, but also kind of related to also wet weather, water pollution, oil spills, etc. Also infectious diseases, potentially new pandemics coming up, etc. is in 2022, especially in April of that year, but sometime between, I would say, March and May, so spring of 2022, basically, we will have a conjunction between Neptune and Jupiter, which both are often associated with oil, but also liquids. And of course, Jupiter's expansion and too much, sort of a good thing. And previously, under similar aspects, what we would have is kind of a spike in various infectious diseases, especially anything that's like waterborne disease, like, cholera or something like that. Also really major floods, like floods that are like once in a decade, once in a multi-decade kind of flood situations. And again, we'll have spring. Of course, spring is when things usually flood anyway. Also could be really an excess of like floating oil storage, oil glut, and also increased probability of oil spills, which again in the past under Neptune-Jupiter conjunction, we've had really major oil, like multi-thousands of barrels of oil would spill. And so obviously water pollution, and since we already have a lot of like vessels apparently carrying crude oil, and in spring of next year, like I said, March through May, but I guess the most critical days could be April 4th through the 12th, I believe, is, I don't know what the status of those ships is, but if there's bad weather, which under Jupiter and Neptune conjunction, indeed, there may be excessively wet weather, like hurricanes, waves, typhoons, you name it. Those obviously can overturn the ships, so the ships can spill oil, or obviously over time, the ships just, I guess, may not be in as good of a condition. So one way or the other, unfortunately, next spring I would be on lookout for any sort of floods and oil spills, as well as kind of oil glut leading to drop in the oil prices. And then finally, 2025, as I mentioned, is an important year for various reasons. We will have like Neptune going into the new sign. We'll have Neptune conjuncting Saturn, and generally speaking, this will likely be a very major kind of a reversal point for oil, and that will, I think, might be a top, but either way, it will be some sort of a really major kind of a multi-year trend reversal. And at the same time, there may be some either like shortages of oil or an embargo placed, or some sort of regulations that are very strict on oil, production, refineries, or maritime accidents, pandemic, like flu pandemics. And it will either be on off sort of the entire year, and there are multiple times where these sort of situations may spike, especially around February 1st, April 25th, July 21st, and then August 12th of 2025. Or it could be something that maybe we have like a large oil spill, for example, or beginning of another flu pandemic and around February 1st of 2025, and then the rest of the year is spent on like cleaning things up, rebuilding, or taking care of some sort of consequences of a major flood, or perhaps coming up with a vaccine and healing patients, etc. So that would be of all of these times, I would say 22 and 25 actually seem to be more significant for the direction of oil, and also pose kind of more significant risk for large spills and serious floods than even this year. So that's pretty much it. And do let me know if there are any other topics in particular you'd like me to cover, and I'll try to look into those. And other than that, I think this should be a reasonably nice week for everyone. So I hope you have a great time, and come back and check me out next week. Until then, have a great one. Bye.